My name is Jennifer Dean, and I had a near-death experience in 1996 at 14 years old. I was diagnosed with leukemia in 1995, and I immediately underwent very aggressive chemotherapy treatments. They didn't really know very much on how to treat leukemia, so they just started really blasting me with chemotherapy. And part of the protocol of the treatments was intrathecal chemotherapy, which is chemotherapy injected into the spinal fluid in case any of the cancer cells migrated into the spinal fluid, they could get to the brain. So basically, that's why they actually do that. And after undergoing weeks and weeks of these treatments, I was about to begin my first round of radiation to my brain because that was also part of the protocol. It was just a brutal protocol that they were following strictly because they didn't really, it was so new to them. So they were just following it strictly. And I even had tattoos on my face from when I got tattooed to get the radiation because they had to be going to the same spot every time because it's killing good and bad cells. So they had to be precise with that. And when I was about to get my radiation treatment, I was at Children's Hospital Philadelphia. That's where I was being treated. And they went to bring me next door for the radiology center. And when I got in there and I was sitting there and I was the next patient to go in, I'm sitting with my mom. And all of a sudden, I'm like eating candy. I'm 14 years old at this point, eating candy. All of a sudden, I couldn't hold my head up. It started to fall to the left. And then my arm went dead and my leg went dead. And I just looked over at my mom, like really scared. And I said, something's wrong with me. And she was a home health aide for years. So she said, she thought I was having a stroke because my mouth was drooping. And so she ran to go get the nurse. And she said, my daughter's having a stroke, I think. And they ran me back over to the hospital next door and up to my room, and they got me in bed. And at this point, I could still kind of speak. It was slurred speech. It was mimicking a stroke, but it wasn't a stroke. So they called my doctor. My doctor came rushing in. The minute he opened that curtain and looked at me, I was like, this is bad because he looked so scared. And I was like, just blurted out, am I going to die? Because he just looked scared. And he was like, I don't know. Which, as a nurse now, yeah, sometimes we have to say, I don't know. We're not supposed to just be like, false hopes. But at that point, he had never ever seen a reaction to the chemotherapy like that. It was a very rare, severe reaction to the chemotherapy they're putting in my spinal fluid. And so at that point, when he said, I don't know, I just looked away into space and was like, this is it. Like I accepted whatever came next. And I was, okay with whatever. The next thing you know, within, I'd say hours, my speech started to come back. My left side started to come back. It was just so weird. And then, so they did a test to make sure I could swallow because, with that type of a symptom, like you can choke if you don't have, full use of your throat. If half of it's paralyzed, you could choke. So they did a test on me and I could eat. So they gave me my tray and I was eating my lunch and my dad was there. You're watching Stand By Me because like I'll never forget that movie. But I was sitting there eating my lunch and I went to swallow a piece of carrot and I almost choked and I coughed it up. And I looked at my dad and he looked at me immediately because of what just happened. He was like, what is happening? And I said, it's happening again. But he said that he couldn't understand what I was saying. It was just shaky. I just had a shaky voice and my eyes were like tearing up. And then he said, the next thing you know, you're out. Like I fell unconscious. At that point, I slipped into a vegetative state. The chemotherapy was not done, attacking my brain. At this point, I just remember going into darkness. There was no pain. I wasn't scared. That was a short span. I don't know time in that space, but I just remember darkness. And then I came back to my body, but I looked like this. I had such a severe brain injury. I was locked into my body, but I was fully aware. The doctors did not think I was aware. They told my parents, like, I just was hysterically crying because I was aware that I was locked in my body and I couldn't even scratch an itch, I couldn't do anything for myself. It was like terrifying to be fully aware and conscious. That's the ultimate prison. And, so just I would cry and cry. And they decided to go do an MRI to find out really like what was happening. When they put me into the MRI, they put headphones on me, but there was just static coming through because MRI's got like a loud banging noise and it's like an hour long and you're in a tube and it's claustrophobic. So they give you headphones to listen to music, but nobody checked to make sure the station was tuned. And I couldn't speak or anything to tell them it wasn't tuned. So I'm listening to static, sitting in an MRI machine with a severe brain injury, fully aware of all of it. And I'm like, I thought I was going to lose my mind. And I kept telling my body to move my foot. I kept saying, move your foot, move your foot, move your foot. And I did get my foot to move. And that's what prompted my dad was sitting in the room with me. It prompted him to, he said he saw tears running down my face. And he literally jumped up and started pulling me out of the machine, like pulling the machine. And they turned it off and got me out. They sat me up, brought like a dry erase board and a marker, and they wanted me to try and tell them what I was trying to say. But my hands were like this because of the brain injury, and I couldn't hold the marker on either hand to write. So I just dropped it all and was crying. And that's when like it was just constant tears. And after that, that's when I was slipping further into a coma. I know I was because it got more and more peaceful as I was slipping away. And then I ended up like in the void. I guess I was kind of fighting to stay. And then once I like let go of that body, I started to slip into a deeper state of coma. And I just remember darkness, completely at peace. And I mean, like I had been going through months of chemotherapy at this point. So I was in so much pain all the time. It was just beautiful to be at peace. It was like being swaddled in a blanket of darkness, really. Like now I know it as the cosmic womb. Like that's really what it felt like, just in a womb of darkness. And I just knew I was going to be okay. And the next thing I know, I open my eyes and I'm in my hospital room. And I knew I was in my hospital room, I guess, because I was in the hospital before I had the NDE. Like I came back and I looked around my bed and my whole family was standing around my bed saying goodbye. They were like my entire family, aunts and uncles, cousins, brother, sister. They were all there. And I remember looking at them and wondering why they all looked so scared. Because like I didn't know what I looked like. And I looked up at the pole, like, what are they giving me? But I was only getting saline because they didn't want to give me any kind of sedative or pain med because they didn't want to sedate me more. They wanted me to wake up. So if they keep sedating a person, it's the drugs are keeping that person asleep. They want you to wake up. They won't give you it. And I just remember looking at everybody, they looked so scared. And I was like, I'm going to be okay, guys. Everything's going to be okay. Like, I just kept saying that. I wasn't saying, like, I was so unaware of my body and what I looked like because I was dying. I was a kid dying of cancer in a bed. Like, that's the worst image you could think of, right? But like I just was like, so oh no big deal, I'm fine, everything's fine, I'm gonna be fine. And sure enough, I pulled through. I started to be able to communicate more. My body started to work more. I took a little bit to like get my speech back. I had to work on that. And I was able to start walking again and everything, and I did. I was okay. Like I made a full recovery to the point where like they had, because Children's Hospital of Philadelphia is a teaching hospital. So doctors said it was a miracle that I woke up because they did nothing. They didn't know what to do. According to them, I was like the 8th case in the world of that severe reaction to the chemotherapy. So it wasn't even well known. And all the other kids who had that reaction either died or didn't come out of their vegetative state. They were telling my parents, you're either going to bury her or you're going to have to put her in a facility for 24/7 care. So when I pulled through completely, they were like, oh, that's a miracle because she was gone. She was a goner. But I remember just hordes of doctors coming through because they wanted to see me. I don't know. And at that point, everything after that was, why did I survive? So why am I here then? Like, I must have a big mission if I survived that. And I do remember thinking, I don't know where I was, but I want to do as much good on this earth so I can go back to wherever I was. So like, it wasn't a scary experience in the void at all for me. It was like, when we speak about the darkness on earth, it is a scary place, but the darkness on the other side, it's not scary at all. Like it's freeing. You don't have a body. So you are expansive. It's so different. I get that a lot. Like some people just they think they're like it must be scary though to go to like darkness, and I'm like no, it's scary to go through chemotherapy treatments and be in physical pain on this earth. To me, when you go through stuff like that, you're not afraid of dying. You know, I think every cancer patient gets to a point where they're okay with it if it happens, and you make peace with it, and then if you live, then you're like so grateful for the extra time. If you pass away, you're okay with it anyway. So, it's interesting because you get to that point and like I was already there. Like I was okay with it. So it was just so much pain, but I came back and I knew I must have a big mission, and everything I did was, just to help people. I knew I had to help people, but I was always pretty helpful. I was definitely very much empathic as a child, but I don't remember like spiritual experiences as a child before this near death experience. But then again, I went through a lot of years of chemotherapy that may have wiped out some of the memories. I hate to laugh at that, but I'm serious. Like chemo brain's a real thing. So, but yeah, that was the experience. And then after that, it impacted my whole life. In my early 20s, I got a job working for the county medical examiner, assisting in autopsies. So this was before I even remembered that I had this near death experience. I didn't really process that yet. Like once I got better and I went back to high school, and I kept continuing to get chemotherapy treatments. And I finished the protocol. I did have some side effects, like severe side effects, but none that actually almost killed me again. But after that, I was just so full of life because I was fully aware that I dodged such a bullet of being trapped in my body. I could be trapped in my body right now. And like this, it's like insane. So when I look at it like that, it's crazy. And then when I started working with the medical examiner, that was a whole nother ball game because those were some pretty like traumatic type of deaths. So I don't think when I got that job, I realized the spiritual impact the job would have on me because I just wasn't aware of my abilities yet. And so working with that type of work where the soul is kind of like almost stunned because it was such a sudden traumatic death in these autopsies, it took me a long time to realize like how to work with the gifts and how to protect myself so I can help other people and help myself at the same time. So, I'm not pouring from an empty jar, but that was a heavy job to have. But it definitely, there's something sacred about working with the dead. And I took it, very seriously. And now as a nurse, I also work, hospice cases. I've had hospice patients. I feel like I know where they're going and I let them know, like the hospice patients. I tell them it's like beyond beautiful. Like there's nothing to fear, just let go. And they do. Like they kind of just need to be told it's okay, But I would never be able to do all that without that near death experience. Plus, I was in hospice for 3 years. They thought I was going to die. I mean, the kind of leukemia I had, they didn't really have a high success rate in 1995. But yeah, here I am out 28 years cancer free. I have a son. He's 7. He's like a light of my life. I'm a pediatric home health nurse, so it's like full circle. I learned from the best, and I learned how to integrate everything. It took a long time to get there, but now I love being able to share it with everybody. If it will help somebody, then it was worth it. Like I said, because I'm talking about going to the void, and even though it wasn't scary, the physical part of the experience was terrifying. So I like blocked those memories for years, but it came back right when it was meant to, and the rest is history, really. I had a loved one pass away, and it was just grief stricken. It was horrible. So it made me ask God, like, why not take me? Like, why am I still here? Type of a thing. And boom, I started to remember everything. But I was like 33 at that point. So I was able to know what to do with it at 33, where at 14, would I have really known what to do with that experience? I probably wouldn't have told anybody. Like that chapter, I got all that out, and it is almost like a release from the nervous system. Like I had to do it.